It's time for Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
I have a friend who does Christian radio.
Me.
And one of the features on his show that he does every once in a while, when he wants to make a point, but he knows he's not going to make it in a really elegant way, he says, this is what's coming up now is a lame sermon illustration. Well, what's coming up right now, this is a lame sermon illustration. What would life be like without God in the picture? Life would be like the movie Cats.
Ouch.
It would be going from one random scene to another with no guiding plot whatsoever. Maybe some bad CGI thrown in there from time to time. And finally, it just ends in death, and we really don't know what happens after that. That's what life would be like.
And that doesn't sound like a whole lot of, well, anything, frankly. This is Wretched Radio, a buddy of mine preaching a sermon on life without God. What would it be like if God not only existed, but if God were not totally, absolutely in control of everything? There seems to be something inside of a lot of human hearts, maybe all, but we love the idea of being somewhat autonomous. We have a difficult time explaining how is it that I can be held accountable for my decisions if I'm really not in control of the situation and not making genuine decisions. It appears to be a conundrum, but it's not. It is resolved in the mind of God, and we accept that even if we can't grasp that, because the alternative to understanding that God is in control of every molecule in the universe is disaster. Sure, it's a little hard for us to harmonize in our noggins. How is it that God orchestrates everything and yet I make genuine decisions? That does appear on its face to be a little bit tricky. Here's the alternative. If God isn't in control of everything, what would life look like? What would happen on this planet? How many totally autonomous decisions do each of us get to make? How is it that the universe could even be run if everybody is in charge, which is what autonomy means? Nobody's in charge. We're all in charge. You could not expect any outcome that is consistent or reliable. It would be a mess. From Looking at Christ, Ryan Hawkins writing, Why God Alone Must Be in Control Completely helps us to understand, while it may be difficult to grasp some of these truths about God, the alternatives are, believe me, you don't want them. You don't want to be living in Cats.
No one does.
I think even people, frankly, who like cats don't want to be stuck in the movie Cats. When he said that, it's like, you know what? He's absolutely right. What is Cats about? Well, the answer is cats. So there's a cat with a personality, and we sing a song about it. That's it. And then you sing a song about another cat. The cats aren't being attacked. It's not Catageddon, some sort of end of the world scenario for felines. It's just one song randomly placed after another. I can't imagine anybody would go to a movie like that. Can you, Joey?
I don't know what you're inferring. Implying.
I can't imagine that anybody, knowing how bad that movie was, would actually go to that movie. That's all I'm saying. Can you imagine anybody doing that?
I can imagine someone doing that.
Really?
Yes.
Who do you know?
My wife tried. She knew it was going to be awful and still couldn't make it more than 20 minutes.
What about the music? Didn't that Andrew Lloyd Webber score
That's
keep
how
her
she
in
made
the-
it 20 minutes.
Yeah. No, I don't think that helped.
Oh, what? But that's what the whole thing is about. It's just songs. Like midnight, not a sound
That's enough.
from the
Stop.
bay.
Stop.
So is
So you're
this
saying I could have
radically
improved the
different than the
movie.
Broadway show?
I have no idea. Did Carlos say it's different than the Broadway show?
Neither of us have seen it, but from what I've heard, it's actually fairly faithful to the Broadway show.
So the Broadway show was about nothing but random cat songs.
That's correct.
Yeah, but at least you had people in costumes as opposed to these weird CGI abominations.
Why God alone must be in complete control so that life is not like the movie Cats. First, if autonomous human ability were true, God's will would, in essence, be subjected to the trillions upon trillions of actions of unforeseen future human wills. Let's recap. You get to make 10 autonomous decisions in your lifetime. But if we don't have a cap on it, if we're genuinely autonomous in everything that we do on this planet, that's trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of moving parts. Can you see the chaos? Now, some people would argue, the open theist might argue, that actually makes God more omnipotent. He's able to take that great big colossal mess and bring the ship into harbor. I don't think the logic stands, because if the boat on the seas is not under control, you can't bring it into port. It has got to be under control all the time, or it won't be under control at all. From the article, this would be unworthy of the supreme being because such an idea would be inconsistent with the supremacy of his will, which is so biblical, that God is on his throne. God is in his temple. Let the whole world be silent. That whole concept of God's omnipotence and omniscience is under assault if you and I get to do whatever we want to do and God isn't in control. Now, having said that, don't forget, what you do, you genuinely do. And God is in control. If you can't quite make that sink, consider the alternative. God would be subject to us in all of his plans and actions and how he governs the world. So God isn't controlling the world. He's responding to us in the world. And it seems to me the responders are the people who are not in charge. God either is or he isn't. Second, the idea of free will would actually make a more fatalistic world than the belief in a totally sovereign God, because the free will logic in actuality is more in line with pagan fatalism, namely that there's just so many wills and competing factors that it's all essentially chaos. That's paganism. You're just tripping through life. The winds are blowing and you go with it. You fight against it, but there is nothing predictable. So what can you or these small g gods do to truly change anything? You don't want free will, totally autonomous free will, because it would totally strip God of his godness. He wouldn't be God anymore. He'd be serving us. Wrong. Make him subjected to the trillions of unforeseen decisions that were made and promote a fatalistic chaos. We'd rather have God to be in control even over our actions than we being in control. Because isn't that what it means? I make a decision, I'm in control here. Wrong. Third problem. The idea of autonomous human choice is, quote, repugnant to the absolute sovereignty of God and brings him into dependence upon his creatures. This is Jonathan Edwards thinking on the subject. Believing in autonomous free will might help us to logically answer how we can be responsible for our actions, and I get that. But it leaves us with a, quote, God who is dependent in his plans, volitions, and governing of the world to the trillions upon trillions of unforeseen willful actions of his creation. That doesn't feel right, does it? You really want to be in charge of a planet? You really want to be in charge of your world? And this would mean our wills are even more autonomous than his will. That's a bit of a problem, foreign to the Bible. God works all things according to the counsel of whatever you decide. No, God works all things according to the counsel of his will. Ephesians 1:11, Rexella. He's in charge of the place. He's running the place. We are servants to the King who's running the universe. And yet, even as he ordains, providentially controls everything, what you and I do, we genuinely do. What you and I decide, we genuinely decide. When you and I sin, we're genuinely sinning, and we're genuinely responsible for our actions, even as God is sovereignly in control of everything. If that makes your head crack, I would remind you again, there must be things about God that make us go, I don't quite, okay, I see that, but it's like hard. If there were nothing like that, and there are several things, not an overwhelming number of things, but there are a number of issues like that shouldn't cause you to believe that God doesn't exist, but it should solidify your belief that he does exist. Because if you could understand everything about God, he wouldn't be and you would be. And I don't mind telling you, that thought horrifies all of us. This is Wretched Radio.